All right. Fantastic. All right, so welcome. So today, our Google Club is, the theme of our Google Club is Google Tools for Asynchronous Instruction. I think many of you are back in somewhat in person, perhaps, if not entirely back in person. And we were just talking about how to use some of these tools synchronously, which we will do at our next Google Club. The theme next time is synchronous use of Google tools. But today it was more like, this is sort of an extension of the idea of using Google tools for homework in a way. But if you are still doing things, if students are accessing things remotely and not at the same time with you, these are some ideas for how you could create some useful content that your students could access. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Let me make sure I have the right thing up. Actually, first, what I'm going to do in the chat, I'm going to give you today's slides, and we'll share those again. But if you, in the slides, there actually is a link to the survey at the very end. So I will share it again at the end, and I'll share it again tomorrow or today in the follow-up email. But in the slides, you'll have access to that link. So these are our slides for today. And it's probably helpful to have them open if you have the option. We are actually going to try and do some work together today, and it means you're going to probably have multiple tabs open. So we're going to be really mindful of what you want to have open. But the slides are always helpful because you do have those live links, which make it a little easier to follow along. I'm going to go, let's see here. All right, so when we were brainstorming internally, yeah, I did spell asynchronous weirdly at various times. When we were talking internally about how we imagine some easier uses of Google, or some very multiple uses of Google for asynchronous instruction, we decided to kind of focus on slides, YouTube, Gmail, and sites, and the idea that these are content that is relatively nice to interact with on a small screen, thinking that our students might be accessing the content on their phones, but also works beautifully on a larger screen. And yeah, so that's where those tools came up, or how we came up with that list of tools. And what we're going to do today is I'm going to go through each of the tools a little bit. We've covered many of them before in some way, and you may or may not have been here for that. So we're going to go over it. You're going to have the slides, which have all those step-by-step instructions, but I'll also probably do it live, and then you're going to do it. So for example, our slides assignment, you're going to make a little slideshow. And for YouTube, you're going to make your own little playlist. Or at least identify 3 videos that we want to use today. And then you're going to do a Gmail assignment where you actually send me an email. And then the last thing is you're going to put all of that content on a website. And I think we're going to do it. I think it's going to work. And maybe you've already done it and you can help us out if that's the case. So we're going to dive right in. We got lots to do. We're going to start with slides, which I'm using today. Oh, here are our objectives, sorry. So you will be able to create content using Google Slides, YouTube, Gmail, and sites. You'll be able to share that content with your students or with your colleagues, your family, and you'll be able to develop asynchronous lessons using Google tools. So this is the idea that these are things students can do on their own, and we're going to think a little bit about what would be useful for them to do on their own. Is this getting them ready for a lesson that you're going to do? Is it homework after they've done the lesson? So you're thinking that way. Let's see. All right, so finding Google tools. Who can tell me, if I wanted to make Google Slides right now, what would be your way to get? How would you get to a new Google Slides deck? Go ahead and unmute.
The waffle.
Waffle, yay, the waffle for sure. So that's that little 3 by 3 square that you see with the dots. That will often show you all your different apps. Any other ways to get there?
Yeah, Nell, my favorite way is to go the old-fashioned way, I guess. Which is
And
what,
let's-
slides.google.com, right?
I love it. So that, I think that's actually the first thing we have on here. So that's a quick and dirty way. If you're in Chrome, I don't know if it works in the other browsers, but if you're in Chrome, pretty much any tool, any of the major tools in Google, you can get to a new page of those, or a new workspace in one of those tools by typing the name of the tool.google.com. And I think I've in the past said gmail.google.com, but actually it's just mail.google.com. So all the tools we're looking at today, you certainly can get there this way, except YouTube, you just type in YouTube. So that's one way for sure. And then we had Marika's way, which is fantastic. And then there's actually this really shortcut way where you just literally write the name of the tool plus .new, and that will take you to a, so what will happen is if you go to slides.google.com, you'll get to a screen that shows you all the slide presentations you've ever made and then templates for other slides. If you do slides.new, you'll get a new slide presentation open up directly. So it's like the super shortcut, but it also doesn't let you see your other stuff. So you can decide sometimes one way or the other. Any other ways that you get to your, if I asked you to make a new Google Doc or something, what would be your usual steps?
I'd go to my Google Drive and then open up whatever it is.
I love it. And when you go to Google Drive and you want to make something new,
Click
what do
on
you click
new.
on? Click on new. And all these tools are pretty much there, I think, at this point. Even sites you can get there. So you would go to, and I'm like Lauren, I think I tend to have Google Drive open all the time. So that is actually the way I tend to get there, because I always have it open. I just have to get to that tab. And then I click on new and I look at the list of things, and then there's more and I can see more things, and that's the way I get them. And what's handy about that sometimes is that you can be very organized. Like you can make your slides in a folder that you've already created. So that's the benefit of doing it within Drive if you're already there. Otherwise, you can always move things into whatever folders you want after the fact too. So we do have, here we have our waffle, and we can sometimes, we might see it both in gray, we might see it in color. They both do the same thing. And you can organize what you see when you click on those icons, the waffle, either the gray waffle or the color waffle. You can actually move the apps around, so the apps you use the most will be up towards the top. So again, this is when you're using Chrome is usually when you'll see those. And if you don't see them, then you can't use them. But if you see them, click on them and see what happens. So we are with slides. Some thoughts about so how have any of you been using slides with your students now that you're maybe working with them in person? Have you thought of ways to use slides, or is this more back from when you were doing things more remotely? Anybody want to share anything they might be doing with slides with their students? Has it changed? Were you using slides during more remote times and not using them as much now, or what's going on? Yes, Judy, I see you unmuted.
Well, my experience, quite honestly, I haven't been using slides a lot, even when I was remotely, and certainly I haven't yet in person.
Gotcha. All right, Joan, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I share slides from the lesson for, I think I do all of these things.
Okay.
For the review, for the next, occasionally I'll do something for the next lesson, like I'll send them a slide with a link to a grammar video or something so they can watch it before class. And then I don't use a single slide to have everybody add content to. I don't do that. Add content to group slides document, yes. And students create their own slides. So I just had, yeah, I just had them do I teach at KCS also. They interviewed somebody, a friend or a family member. So I had them present that. And then some students went to Israel on their vacation. Wow. So I had them do a presentation on that. And I just, they're high beginners. So I sent them questions and then they completed it and they added the pictures. So
and had you spent a lot of time with them in person, helping them get more familiar with slides, or did you kind of let them loose and see what they figured out on their own?
I think they were quite familiar with
Okay.
it, with how it operated already. I have a couple of students in that class who are older and they aren't really interested in learning it. So I just have them send me an email and if they want a picture, and then I'll throw it in the slides for
nice.
them.
Yeah. Yes, and this is one of the struggles, right? And I've been hearing it around email and a variety of things where students might not be as interested in doing these things. And you can decide, right? Like whether this is something you really want to push for or not. And I think it's interesting, right, that a lot of students probably have become familiar with slides for a variety of reasons, where we may not have been because that wasn't part of our work, and now maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Judy, yes.
I have a question. Just by what you wrote here on this sheet here, you say use a single slide document, but add new content to it. Is that similar to what you would do with Jamboard?
Yeah, I think my idea here was more over time that you could almost treat a slide deck as your class website. So students would have a single link to a slide deck, but they would know every Friday to come back and look, and then the last slide would be the new assignment. That was my thought. Which there are things you can do, but Jamboard's still better for many of the things you do with Jamboard. The issue is always going to be when you give people access to editing slides, it's hard to control what they can delete. Like you can certainly play. I tried making a game once where you could move, like, sort of a drag and drop questions. And it kind of worked and it kind of didn't. So I don't, so you certainly could try that out, and maybe someone else has had some experience with that. And I know
because
we did a big
if I can
gamification thing.
use that as sort of a fail safe for them not to mess with the Jamboard, because I did have trouble, just like you illustrated, you can't control them once you add the editing mode, you
Yes.
can lose a lot, which happened to me.
Yes. So with slides, so this example that I'm giving you where I try to do this drag and drop. So my first attempt, so I have my sentences written and I actually made an image as my background. So no one could delete any of the sentences, right? That was like a frozen image in the background. Then I created text boxes with the words that should go into the blanks. I realized those could get deleted, or at least the words could get messed up. So I made those into little images instead of being text boxes. They were actually like clipped out words so that they were drag and drop, but you still could delete the whole word. So at that point I gave up because I was like, oh, this is not solving my problem. And there's probably a better tool out there for what I want to do. I'm not a super proficient user of Jamboard, and Liz Elena is not going to be here today, and she's really much more familiar with Jamboard, and I think she's done things that you're describing. I know I've seen, or at least what I'm kind of describing, like versions of that she's done using Jamboard. Has anybody else used Jamboard? And Judy, when you say it got messed up, it was like people just sort of clicked on stuff and deleted things, or?
Yeah, and actually, when I mentioned that, Liz Elena was actually with us, and she agreed with me that there was really no, she agreed that with what I described, that there really was no solution.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the vulnerabilities of the shared space. And there are some controls in some places, like, in a Sheets document, you can protect an area so that people couldn't do anything in that area. But if you're giving them edit access, whatever is editable, anyone could accidentally delete or, edit. But you also can have, you can go back in history and you can have copies so that you can replace the version that gets messed up. Yes, someone had their hand raised. Maybe they was going to say that. I love the chat. Was there someone else who had a comment along those lines? Or struggles, or they've used slides in a way that they'd like to share?
I was saying in the chat that I use slides. I used it recently for like announcements on the Google Classroom. So we talked about domestic awareness and abuse. So I put the things that we studied as opposed to just my Padlet. I used that and had them. I kept it and let them be viewers, but everyone had access to it. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do that as my weekly announcement, slide, so they can always go to that. But I also use it for homework and classwork in general. For my beginners who are not really maybe into this, I have blended classes most of the time. So I'll have the students use our slideshow as their whiteboard, so to speak. So whatever we're doing, let's say we do phrasal verbs or something like that. The project of the day could have been create a slide with a phrasal verb, then we connect another slide with the answer, what it means. And the person that's a beginner will work together with someone else to just write the answer, create a text box, change the background. So like really basic things. But if I give them something simple like that, at least they have a chance to learn the vocabulary for slides and to see how it's done. And they might not be as afraid to get into the project, that will be in the Google Classroom, like the applied skills. But if they don't do it, I figure that they've at least been exposed to it on some level so they can, try on their own. But that's pretty much it.
And Lauren, I love that you're having them work in groups. So I'm guilty of wanting to give you every step-by-step direction out there. And I still believe that's a nice resource to have, but I actually have come to think or want to do more what they call, Cynthia, my colleague, who's a math person, would say productive struggle, which would be kind of like, go to Google Slides and make a slide show, and then you have to go in there and click around. And this is kind of coming also from the concept of digital resiliency, where we really, when we talk about discrete digital skills, there are a lot of those, right? Like how do you attach a document to an email would be a discrete digital skill. But the resiliency piece has two components. One is to help those folks who maybe do feel a little nervous around tech, or have less confidence, or assume that other people are much better than they are at it, and that they therefore kind of step away from it, to help those people have more confidence. So developing exercises and opportunities for them to do that. And then the other piece is that for all of us, tech changes, right? So if I teach you exactly how to do something today, slides was an interesting one where they used to have a different way where if you were to go in to try to edit your theme, different way to do it, and then one day it changed and now it's called theme builder and it's in a different place. And resilience in this case would be like, well, how do you handle it when the thing that you thought was going to happen didn't happen? And that as teachers or people at the front of the room to kind of show how we work through those problems is actually a really great, so for us to be relaxed and calm about our struggles, but to be maybe even narrate out loud, like, oh, well, that's not working, I'm going to Google it now. Like just, showing them the journey that you take to find the answer, because that's, I have many people who tell me, well, I'm not as techy as and I'm like, well, I'm not that, I'm a good Googler is what I am. I'm a very good Googler, and I've done it enough that I have some techniques. Like I know different ways to do searching, and maybe I even search images. I was talking to a group the other day and they're like, oh, I go to YouTube, right? Like they don't even deal with Google, they do YouTube. So having a set of, having some ways to bring yourself back down to calm place, and then having some techniques for finding new information, which could include a buddy, right? And I think as a teacher, the idea of having pairs work together to do things, hopefully so both people end up doing a little bit of it at least, but that they can learn from each other and have that conversation, which might be for some people maybe make it less stressful than if they're just left to their own devices. And I've thought about that even in workshops that I do. Like if I just send you all off now to go make your slides, which is what I'm going to do today. But my query in my head is, would it be better if I had you work, if I suggested actually that you work in pairs and you're in a breakout room, and that way you guys get to have conversation about it. And like, oh my gosh, Nell went really quickly today. I wish she'd spent more time on how you put the page numbers in there, and the other person could be like, oh, I can tell you that. So I think there's something, anyway, all the way back to you, Lauren. Yay.
That's exactly why I love that. That's
Yes.
why I like that, because we did that here. And
Yes.
I feel exactly the way you described. I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know. So
Yes.
I always feel better if there's someone else there, because it's reassurance and it makes you feel a little calmer, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm the person that was talking. Sounds like Marika. Sorry.
I think
Yeah,
it's
no, it's just I always interrupt. I apologize. I was going to ask about the Google Slide app because, you know, I've done group slide projects, but with the computer more than
Yeah.
the app. So I was exploring in the app, and it looks like you can add a picture, but if it's on your phone, how can you add a picture from the internet? Am I missing something?
I think on your phone, I've never tried it. So if someone else has an answer, they can speak up now. And we can certainly play with that one. I've never done that on my phone. And I would be very sad if I was made to make a slideshow on my phone. I mean, I understand why you would do it.
It's because
So
some students don't have computers, you know.
I know. So depending on the assignment, and Marika, maybe you've done this, and how has it worked?
Well, I tried, you know, luckily most of my students had a computer, and if they didn't, and they were shared projects, they were group projects. So one person would, you know, help the others
Be
if they
that,
didn't.
right.
But I tried on my phone just to try, and I could upload a photo that was on my phone, but I could not upload an internet picture.
So I'm writing that
I
down.
guess I could have downloaded the picture from the internet, and then
Right.
once it's in my photos, yeah.
Yeah, or done a screenshot maybe, but I mean, we can Google it, but we'll look it up and we'll find out if there's a way to add images that are on the internet. Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, Judy.
It's a lot harder on the phone, honestly.
It's a lot harder. Yeah. Well, it's just moving around.
Yeah, that's actually kind of where I was going, Marika, because the majority of my students use phones. Rarely do I have a student that uses a laptop or an iPad or something like that. A majority of them use phones, which really makes trying to have them do slides or anything else like that, you know, a real tough thing.
Yes.
And what many of you have been saying, I mean, this is exactly the thing to be thinking about, right? So when we decide, are we going to use slides? If we are, am I going to be the creator and it's really a way to deliver content? Or is there a way that this could be an opportunity for students to be the creators? Those are all the questions to have in our head, right? And a lot of the answers are going to be dictated a little bit by what your students have access to and their abilities and their skill level and their confidence level. So, I mean, I love that you're all thinking this through, and Marika, I love that you're trying to think of if it's possible to do on a phone. And I think there are some things you could do on a phone. I think some slides I wouldn't mind making on a phone. But if I know my students are mostly doing stuff on their phone, I might not have them create slides outside of class. Like maybe there would be some class time or some lab time when they could do their slides, but there's a lot of pre-work and post-work they could do on their phones, even finding images and saving them to their Google Drive or whatever, so they could then in class spend less time doing that piece and actually spend their time on building them.
I think if it was family presentations, you know, where they just introduce their families, they could do that.
That's beautiful. That's a very nice lesson. So if your images, if the slides are primarily going to be images and images that you might have photographs of, that sounds really interesting. So I look forward to hearing if anyone tries that out. That's great. And certainly you could do that about your home or your neighborhood, right? We can just go out and take a bunch of photos on our phone, depending on our data plans and whatever, and then add those to our slides. So I love it. If anyone's brave today, they could do their slides on their phones, but I'm not gonna suggest that too much. Okay, so these are some thoughts. Any other ideas or thoughts, or has this kind of made you bubble up some new ideas of how you think you might use slides? Yeah, Joan, did you just raise your hand? Yeah.
I just tried adding a photo, like I opened a new Google slide on my phone. I just tried adding a photo that was in my, photos.
Yes.
And it said, no, it's too, it was like too big. It had to be like,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't remember the number now, but
Right.
it said like, I think it's small. It was really small.
And are you using Google Photo and are your photos in Google Photo?
No,
So-
it was just a picture that was, in my photos on my phone.
Gotcha. And Marika, when you tried it, are you using Google Photos?
No.
So it was okay, whatever photo you had. So this is great. And I love, Joan, that you just tried it out. This is going to be what we call, I wonder what would happen if, which I have to say that my husband says that when he cooks, which I don't think is a great idea. But in technology, I think it's a great idea. And the reason we should feel safe in thinking that way is we know we have Control Z, right? So Control Z will take you back a step or multiple steps. So don't worry, but what would happen if I click this button? What would happen if I change the size of this picture? What would happen if I tried to put a photo in a slide on my phone? I'm very excited that you tried that, Joe. But it also brought up another issue, right? Which is something we're not always able to find. We might have a find time. Like I have a Google phone. So some things are really streamlined for me that if a student had a different kind of phone, they might not have. Or the fact that my photos are, the reason I asked about Google Photos is that my photos are in Google Photo, which I'm sure just makes it that much easier to bring them into my slides. So kind of being aware that those differences in devices, early days when I was first starting out with the kind of digital literacy and technology integration stuff, there was a lot of excitement around bring your own devices. What a nightmare, right? Like everyone's coming in with their own device and I don't know what to do. I barely know my own phone. So again, do what you need to do. If you're willing, if you have a couple people in your class who can help you out and you feel willing to experiment with it, that's great. But it is definitely a challenge when students they all have different phones, different generations, different amounts of memories, different apps that they have. So you have to decide, like, are you going to really work on, it doesn't matter that everyone has the same app, does it not? How are you going to handle the fact that things will be a little different? So my main thought of using them asynchronously primarily was not with the students being creators, but I love that that's where some of you are going. And I think that would be really amazing too. But to be safe, at the very least, you making slides that they can that your students or colleagues can look at on their phones. That's definitely a very useful way to use slides. All right, so when we're talking about the slides, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because you have the slides. I just don't write a lot on the slides, so you're going to hear me narrate a little bit, but it's also very good to cover terms with your students so they can speak out loud about, like, well, I looked in the ribbon and I could not find the text box, versus like, the thing with all the whatever the pictures. And so vocabulary is really, really good to use. Talk very discreetly about the steps and the parts of the page that you're pointing to. And I'm being very imprecise right now, but anyway, jargon, ribbon, very important. And also to point out that the ribbon changes. So for folks who are nervous about technology, the idea, when things move really fast, they get that just kind of doubled down on their fear and the proof that the system is totally crazy and they don't know what's going on. Like, I looked at the ribbon and it looked that way, and now I looked at it again, it's a different way. Well, why? Because you have something else selected, and this concept thing is really important. So whatever has the blue box around it, which is another area, right? Like there's this sort of, I've seen people working on slides and doing that kind of freewheeling of like, I don't know what I'm editing right now. It's all, I don't know. It's like, no, be really clear. What does the blue box around it? That's the thing that the slides gremlins think you are trying to work on right now. Yeah, I've covered quite a lot of this before. And again, the box, these text boxes or whatever, you can make the boxes bigger by dragging from the corners, but text is not affected like images are as far as like making things stretch if you don't do the aspect ratio version, which is dragging from the corner and doing a sort of diagonal enlarge. But with the text boxes, the text will stay the same size unless you enlarge it manually as text. And then we have all the useful keystrokes. So we have Control Z, which I already mentioned, which is, I lived for many years without that, and how wonderful is it? And then we have Control Y for redo, Control C for copy, and all of these have a command version, which is for Macs. Control X is for cutting, and Control V is for paste. And I like to think of view with that one. That's why I'm in that one. Okay, so we're going to open new slides. I'm going to really go fast through this because you slow me down, I guess is what I will say. If anyone there has questions about, but this is all how you just start slides, right? So we went to slides.new, or you're going to open up a new slide presentation. In this case, I think this slide comes from when we were doing ebooks, and one of the first steps in ebooks was to change the orientation. So slides generally come in a rectangular, horizontal landscape kind of setup. And even then you can change how wide they are or how narrow they are. For a book, or if you know that your students are going to be looking at it on their phone, it could be, it could be portrait, it could be a horizontal version. So this is kind of the steps for changing the way the page is set up. So this orientation is how you would change it to a portrait version versus a landscape version. Naming your presentation. Again, this is really from when we did the books. Themes. I, at this point, really rarely use their themes. I spend a lot of time, well, I don't spend a lot of time anymore because I've kind of got my basic theme that I use, but I built it myself. I know that I like pretty much a white background, and then I like to change my fonts a little bit, and I add a lot of images. But depending on what you're doing, those are things to consider. There's no reason to use their built-in themes, and I think we're moving away. I still see a lot of slide presentations done formally for conferences or meetings where it's very, lots of words and bullet lists and stuff like that. But I think when we're talking about the way we're using it with our students, we're not necessarily looking for that, right? You might have some small, tiny text that they're going to read like a book. You might have just an image and they're going to talk about the image. So we don't have to kind of obey those rules. And I just don't know if those rules are useful at all anymore. Like, I think that the sort of TED Talks version of slides, where we want sort of meaningful image that is like a mnemonic device, really, more than a word by word verbatim thing. And there's I don't think I have the video here, but there's a video, I'll try and find it. There's a TED Talk about how people can actually absorb information from slides. And it was a marketing guy, so he's talking really about marketing, but he demonstrates to you yourself how you can't really pay attention to more than 7 things on a screen at one time. Again, that's a very much a presentation version versus it being a textbook or a thing that they're going to read on their phone, which I think we can break that rule for that, but just be aware. We can play with lots of things in our slides. Images, and again, insert is your friend, right? In slides, pretty much everything you want to put into your slide is going to be under the insert. You might find a lot of it also in the ribbon, which is a shortcut and more efficient. But if you can't find it, or you're like, whatever, I just want to look under insert tab, that should get you there. And actually, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to escape, and I'm going to take us out to a slides presentation. So if you want to follow along with me, so here's our assignment today for slides. Let's just look at that. So if this is your assignment, if you are willing to take it on, each of us is going to make our own slide presentation. When you open up slides, the first slide is a title slide, and then every slide after that is just a regular page. By default, you can change that any way you want. But what I'm going to ask for today is keep that title slide, write your title on there, whatever, and then at least 3 more slides. And the idea today is thinking of a lesson or a concept or something that October or autumn that you might want to cover with your students that kind of fits here, right? So there's something about images, there's a little bit of writing, like things to do in New York in the autumn, or why do trees lose their leaves, or something like that. So you're going to pick a theme along those lines, unless you have a theme you really want to do, which go for that. But if you don't have a theme, go with this. So you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what to work on. So you're going to make a 4-slide presentation, a title slide plus 3 slides, more if you want to. You're going to pick a fall topic. You're going to put a little bit of writing on, and you're going to have some images in your slides. And you're going to keep that tab open. And you might want to think a little bit about what you're calling the slides and where they're going to sit. So as I was saying earlier, if I was to start off, let me go to my drive, right? So if I was in my drive and I was going to start my slide presentation, I would go to new. Well, this is the question. So I might want to go find my wonderful Google Club folder, right? So maybe I have a Google Club folder. I actually do. So I'm going to go to my shared drives. I'm going to go to my PDU folder. I'm going to go to my Google Club folder, and I'm going to make a new folder in there. Maybe. There we go. And I'm going to call it today's date. I'm going to say Google Club. So I'm not saying you have to do this part, but this is how you could organize your information. And then I'm going to put today's date, which is 10/26/22. And then this is a sample. So I'm writing sample. Do that. So I'm going to create that folder. I now know where this is, right? I know it's in my Google group folder, and I know it's a folder with today's date. So those are going to help me come back and find it if I do want to click out of my tabs. So you can do it any way you want to. And when that's highlighted, I can open it up, and in there I can go ahead and make my new slides. So I'm going to click on Google Slides. If I just click on Google Slides, it'll open up a new blank slide. I could also go to this little arrow and pick from a template, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm just going to do regular Google Slides. Here are my slides. I'm going to say pumpkin carving might be my theme. And I'm going to capitalize that. So if I wanted to change this theme, when I started this, you see on the left that it automatically opened up the theme section. So I could pick one of their themes if I want to. Nothing's really grabbing me, but you know what? It's orange. Let's go with orange. And sure, I'll write my name on it. And then to add a new slide, I go up here to this plus sign. Now, if I want to pick a different than usual, I can do that little downward arrow and it'll give me these other options. But again, by default, it's going to give me a title and body slide, so that's fine. So this is slide number 2. I'm going to write the biggest pumpkin in New York State. So now if I want to insert an image here, as I mentioned earlier, insert. Oh, and I didn't say this. So back here when we were on pumpkin carving on our title page, notice it's still an untitled presentation. If I go up there and just click once, it's going to guess that I want to give it this title. And that's kind of useful. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It just took that suggestion. If I want to, I could add the date. I like to add dates to things. So the date is up here, but it's not on my slide. That's fine. And now in this one, I'm going to insert. So I have images, text box, audio, video, right? All of this kind of content. I'm going to go to image, and I'm going to go to search the web. Oh yes, so the search comes up over here on the side, and I'm going to write biggest pumpkin. Now you could do this separately, right? You don't have to do it within the slides. You could be Googling this somewhere else and then grab that image and paste it in here. Biggest pumpkin in New York. Let's see what it gives us. So who knows, but I'm going to go with this one. So you click on the image you like. Once you click on it, you get this insert box. Click on insert. It's going to insert it in the middle of the picture. I want to make it a little smaller. We say we don't like to drag from the, so notice I've clicked on the picture, so there's a little blue line here. You can't really see it. I'll get rid of this themes picture so it's not. So this means I'm editing this picture. If I click out here, I'm no longer editing the picture. And if I start to do something, I'm just going to move the whole picture. And that is something that often happens for folks. So we want to make sure that we've clicked on the picture, and we can confirm it by looking for these little blue boxes if we can't see the outline together. And now I'm going to drag from the corner, because if I drag from the side, I'm going to stretch out the picture. Right, so I lose my aspect ratio. So I'm going to do Control Z, but that was a good, what would happen if? And now I'm going to come back and I'm going to go up to the diagonal and drag that in to make it a little smaller. And then I can move it over here. And when I'm doing that, when the picture is highlighted, you'll see this is what you see in the ribbon, right? And one of the options I have is format options. I like to do drop shadow. It makes the picture kind of have a little bit of a, just a little tiny shadow. So it looks like it's sort of standing out. And then I get rid of format options. Now the picture is not, the picture is not what is active, right? And now I see that my ribbon is different. And that's what I meant earlier, that like, you know, depending on where I am, if I'm typing inside the text box, I get a very different ribbon than if I'm clicking on the image. Yeah. All right, so that's what you're gonna do. It's 4:44, we're gonna run out of time. So maybe if you want to just do one, do like a title card, a title slide and one other slide. I'm gonna make it speedy, so you can't be too perfectionist about it. So we're gonna actually give you like 6 minutes. So at 5:50, we're gonna come back and move on to our next piece. If you have questions in the meantime, I'm here, but feel free to go off and play with your slides. You just need to know where they are. You don't need to share them. We're gonna talk about how you can add them to your site at the end. So that's what you'll need to be able to do. And I'm gonna stop sharing. Go for it. Make those slides. But again, if you have questions, just feel free to unmute and ask them.
Nell, how much time are you giving us?
6 minutes.
Holy moly.
I know, I'm terrible. If you get one slide, that's enough, right? But for those of you, this is sort of something you might already be doing. You could steal another set of slides you've made, whatever. I'm not going to be picky, but I want everyone to at least made some slides. So if you've never made slides before, this is your chance. And if you've made slides before, just make 1 or 2. It's fine.
I'm sorry, you want us to make 2 original slides or?
So my goal would be, yes, 2 original slides. My goal was 4, but I'm good with 2. I know I'm giving you a very short time because I have talked too much. We've all had a good conversations, but we've taken up time, so we're going to run out of time. And I really want us to get to sites because I'm guessing more of you have not done sites than have not done slides. So we want to get there. I'm going to mute myself, but oops, I'm going to mute myself after I stop talking. Feel free to ask questions. Just put them in the chat, raise your hand. Don't even raise your hand, just unmute and ask questions as you're doing this. The slides do take you through step by step, but I'm happy to demonstrate anything or answer questions.
How do we put it in your folder?
So you don't need to put it in my folder. You're going to save it in your own folder.
Okay.
And then what's going to happen in the rest of today is so you have your slides. I think our next thing is YouTube. You're going to find some videos, again, for you to know about. You don't have to share them with us yet. Then we're going to do Gmail, where you are going to send me an email. And then the very last thing is you're going to make a site, and that's where you're going to put your slides so we can see them. So you don't need to share them now, but we'll be looking at, you need to know where they are. That's the key. So either keep that tab open or put them in a folder where you know they are, have some way to get back to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Eldry. Oops, you're muted.
Yes, I have a question. I'm doing it from my phone.
Yeah, ooh, fancy. Okay.
And I made 1 slide, but I don't know how to do the second one.
How to add a new slide. Marika, Marika, Joan, I'm going to do it right now because I actually never made slides on my phone. Anybody have an answer for Eldry? All right, going in.
I don't have an answer. I usually experiment.
Yes,
find it.
So looking for a plus sign or like 3 dots, maybe.
Okay.
Let's see what happens.
I don't see that option.
Okay, I'm making a new presentation.
I know you can do it, but I've forgotten.
So on my screen, I don't know if I'll be able to show this to you really. Right at the very bottom there. Oops, nope, it didn't like it.
No,
right
it's really hard to share that when you have a background.
I know. I'll get rid of the background. Thank you for that. Let's see. All right. At the very, so I'm on it, like I said, I'm on an Android, so that might make a difference. But at the very bottom of my phone screen, see on the over here, there's that little slide picture with a little plus sign in the corner. Do you see it?
Yes.
Do you see that on yours? I
Yes,
think if you,
I do.
I think if you tap that, it will be another slide.
Okay.
And I love all these brave people doing it on their phones. It's very exciting. Judy, I see you're doing it too. And so, yeah, when I click on that little slide icon, it gives me all the different options and I just have to pick one of those, right? So if I want to do a title and body, and then now I'm going to try to do the thing you guys were talking about where I'm going to insert an image. Aha. So I tapped on that central box and it gave me a little plus sign at the top. And then I could, when I clicked on that, I could add an image. I'm going to do it from photos. And I'm going to add, it's funny. So it's only showing me some of my photos, which must mean maybe that's that size thing you were talking about where it doesn't like certain sizes. I'm going to add a picture of my cat. And then I'm going to add another slide.
It looks like if you double click on a slide and you want to change the layout, then it get, well, I've already done it. So yeah, if you double at the bottom of the screen, if you double click on a slide, then it gives you a whole
You can get back to those options
bunch
again.
of changes. And if you click on the arrow to the right, it's twice it came up, change background.
It's really, so this is great. I'm doing something new too, right? So I'm looking at this and when I clicked on the three dots and I get this whole slew of things like Q&A history and view comments and show speaker notes, like all kinds of things that I never deal with, which might be really interesting to work with students using. I don't know. So that's very interesting.
Oh, and there's help and feedback too. That's
Which
good.
is also helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. Because I wanted to see where I saved it so I could make sure I could get back to it because that's the only issue. But ooh, and I think I can even present I can present from my phone. That's crazy. Or present to a scheduled meeting. I don't even have to be there. All right, time has passed. You can
Mel, I have a
still,
question
yes,
for you.
yes,
Okay, because I'm using my phone, as you know, from the message I sent
yes,
you. And using one of my Gmail accounts. And I'm
yes.
trying to do add slide and it's telling me I have to go to Google Play to install.
Get the app.
That makes
right.
sense?
It does.
Okay.
So one of the things with Google, and this is great that we're discovering it today. One of the things that happens with Google is you can look at Google content without the app for each individual tool, but in order to edit any of those Google tools, like Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, any of those documents, if you want to edit them, it's going to prompt you to go get the app. So you're going to need the app for each of those tools if you're going to edit them. So with students, that's an issue, right? That's one more app that maybe you need to practice downloading and knowing where it is, which isn't bad, but it is something to think about. Whereas for them to view a slide presentation you share with them, they would not need to do that. They could just see the slides and not need the extra app. I would recommend that they at least have Google Drive on their phones, because that way they can get back to the slides, one of the issues, without having to go back to whatever link or whatever that you sent to them with. All right, so we're just going to keep moving, but if you have questions about, well, anybody have questions about slides right now, and then we're going to move on to.
Yeah, the only
YouTube.
question I have is that the more
Yes.
apps you add, of course, the memory depletes.
Yes.
So
Yes.
with the students, how much memory do they have on their phones is another issue.
100%. That is a very good thing to remind us that we need to be thoughtful about. I've even had colleagues, or probably even phones I've had, have gone to a place where I couldn't download another app. So certainly consider that. Know that you may need to do some, find out from your students. Is it something they'd be willing to do, or is it not? And just, I've made the mistake when I was working with students of thinking, oh, we're just going to do this thing. And it's like, oh, no. There's all these steps before. If I give you the assignment to make Google Slides and I just assume you have Google Slides on your phone, that's going to be a problem, because even if one person doesn't have it, that's going to mean that you need to pay attention to that person while everyone else is waiting. So you want to space it out. Like if I was going to do this with my students, I'd want to find out if it was okay if they added the app. I'd maybe want to add the app on Monday and then work on it on Tuesday, like not even work on it the same day, because some people don't know their password to download apps. There can be a lot of, but once you do it once, you'll know, right? You'll know what your students are, where the trouble points are. We've had programs where the Wi-Fi wasn't strong enough, or we tried to get everyone on Gmail, and like you could only create 10 Gmail accounts a day from an ISP. And so like the 12th or the 11th person couldn't do it, and we didn't know why. And those things are not good. They're not fun to bump into in the middle of a lesson when that's not the point. The point was to make the Google Slides. Okay, I'm moving along. I'm going to share my screen again. The giant pumpkin is there. So back in my slides, we have, so you'll notice up in the corner here, I put in links. So when you're playing with these slides later on and you want to move back and forth, you can either put it into slideshow mode, and then this will be a live link, or you can just, even in non-slideshow mode, you can click on this and you should get the option. There we go. So not on the words, but on the side of the box. And then you get the option of going back to the agenda. And now I'm going to come back to YouTube. Okay. Oh, and that was a piece in slides. So do people know how to do that? The connecting, I did put it in there, but we can do it very quickly. So if I wanted to make this into a link of any kind, I would highlight it. And I usually go up to the ribbon. I think you could also right click. Yeah. So there's either right click and you get link, or you highlight and you go up to the ribbon and there's that insert link. And usually for most of us, we're putting a link out to something else, right? This could be a link out to YouTube. That would be very logical. But if I want to link to something inside the presentation, if I look at the bottom here, I have that option. And for this to work, you want to make sure you've been using your title as well, because the title, you can connect to the title, and that way you're not connecting to the slide number, which will change if you add other things in. So it's really elegant when you can click on that and then slide down and find, make a presentation with a link. And now when I click on that, it's going to take me to that page. What I've learned when I do that inside and now I'm going to do Control Z to get rid of that. What I've found when I do that is, I'll do Control Y because I don't know what I just did. Whatever. Okay. Is that you would get here, and then if you wanted to go back to the agenda, it's hard. So I've gone ahead and put in a button, which is the same basic idea. I did a text box. Type in the text box. Hello. And then instead of making the word the link, I click on this. So right now, it's a little hard to tell, but right now I'm technically editing hello, because you see that blinking cursor. If I click out here and I click back on this box and I click on the edge of the box, Now I'm not editing the word, I'm editing the box. And that's what we want to be able to do, because that makes the whole thing into the link rather than the words. If you make the words the link, it'll be underlined or whatever, but if someone clicked somewhere in the color, they wouldn't get there. So I like to do it this way instead. So what I usually do is I color it by going to the little bucket over here. And then I go to the link. And then I do what I just did, go find that slide and send it back there. And then I can reshape this. All right, so now that's a button that I made myself. It's not super elegant. And the way I made the dots is I clicked on it again, I clicked on the outside again. So I'm editing the box, not the word. And I went up to where I can change the lines. So I made them a little heavier and I clicked on my little dots and that made little dots. So that's how we do the links internally. I think in our YouTube, the LEC playlist, we have step-by-step instructions for that. So if that's something you're really interested in, we can certainly make sure you get that. Yeah, the button's kind of fun. And the button could be anything. The button could lead to sound. The button could, take you out to a website. There's a lot of options there. Okay, so we're going to click to YouTube. I'm going to do my trick question. I'm going to guess that all of you have Google accounts. Is there anyone here who does not have a YouTube account? Raise your hand, either visually or in the little box of your hand.
I don't.
But you do. This is the trick. Yay, thank you, Eldry, because now I get to say this. If you have a Google account, you automatically have a YouTube account. You may never have used it, but if you go to YouTube, so we're going to go to YouTube, and you're going to want to do this because this is part of today's assignments. You're going to go to YouTube, and when you get to YouTube, I'm already logged in because I'm in my Chrome. But if you aren't logged in, when you get up here, there should be a login space. Let's see if I can log out. Let's see if I can figure out how to do that well. Sign out. Okay, so if I sign out, oh, it's probably sign me out on my phone. All right, let's undo that. Sign in again. Oh, good. This should be exciting. All right, let's see if I remember my password.
That's been my dilemma, Nell, and it happened in class yesterday.
To sign out, to show them how to sign in.
No, because I'm using Queen's Library computers,
Yeah.
which you're forced to sort of log out of your own account.
Right.
If you try to go back in there, what was that password again?
Yes.
I forgot it.
Yes. I might not be able to get back in right now. Let's see. Nope. So I just did the terrible thing, but that's okay because I'll demonstrate to you. So I'll go to my YouTube and I should be logged out of my YouTube. Yep, I'm logged out of my YouTube. So when you first come to YouTube and you've never signed in or you're not signed in, you're going to see a sign in button. You're going to click on sign in. You're going to pick the account that it should be. You might not even have an option, but you may have several accounts. So you pick the one you want it to be. I just can't believe I don't remember my password because I'm in front of you all. But anyway, I'll come back to that. So then you sign in and I'm going to do the magic thing of stop sharing. And then I'm going to share my other Google page open because then I can show you there. So let me get that YouTube up. All right. All right, so I have two different Google accounts. One is for work and one is for home. This is my home one, which has a lot of work in it too. And so I'm now logged in. And when I'm logged in, I'm going to see a lot of information about everything I've ever done in Google, right? Or everything I've done in YouTube. So there's always all this stuff on the side, right? We have home, shorts, subscriptions, originals, YouTube music. library, history, your videos, your movies, watch later, downloads, your clips. Your movies, watch later, downloads, your clips. These are all what we could call playlists, right? So in YouTube, the way you organize the concept of a folder would be a playlist. And there's some default playlists. So if I start watching a video right now, it's by default, it's going to end up in my, well, not watch later, it'll probably show up in my, there should be a history one. Yeah, in history.
It usually shows up in history from my
Exactly.
experience.
You're absolutely right. So history would show you the things I've watched. If I see a video that I really want to see, I can go to it. I can not have it play, but down here at 3 dots, I can clip it. I can save it to a playlist. When I want to save it to a playlist, I've created all these. So the ones I was just talking about are ones that are default. Everybody has them. History is one that we all have. But then you can have as many different ones as you want, right? So I could create a new one. And the key here is to call it something that's useful, right? So I'm going to call this Noel Fielding. And I can decide if it should be private or public. It doesn't really matter to me in that I'm probably the only one watching it. And it doesn't matter to me if the whole world sees it. So I'm going to go ahead and say public. If you're going to do this with something that you want students to see, or maybe it's students' work, unlisted is a nice kind of middle road where you could share the link with the students and they can see your playlist. But people in the regular world can't just discover it. Private, only you can see it. So if you do private and then you try to share a link with students, they probably won't be able to see it. When I've tested it, that's been the case. So I don't think private's so useful for anything that you might want to share with other people. So we're going to click public and then we create it. And now when I go back to my list here, Noel Fielding's at the top. And that's the one thing I find a little annoying. I think there's a way to sort this. It is sort of in order of what you added to, rather than an alphabetical order. So it can be a little annoying when you're trying to find your stuff. So your job today is to find at least one video, 3 was my dream, one video on whatever the topic was that you started with your slides, if it makes sense. If not, you can do something else. You can just, it's really to practice this process. So I would search, if mine was about pumpkins, right, I'm going to search up pumpkin carving. Oops, I guess I should spell that properly. 13 levels of pumpkin carving. Okay, so I'm going to pretend that I'm a really good person and I've watched this whole video and I've decided this is the video that would be really great for my students to have access to. And I can do some things like I can see, okay, it's from Wired, which is a cool, you know, I can trust them. I might go to the video and see how long it is. See how long it is, because that can be a thing. So this is 23 minutes and 30 seconds. That's long. I might want to do this magical thing where I'm going to share it, but I want, again, we're pretending that I watched the whole video and the part that I really care about is right here. This is what I want the students to see. I have 2 options. I can clip it, right? So clipping would allow me to give just the little piece that I want them to see. Or I don't do clipping very often because I like them to have access to the whole video. But what I would do is I would go to share, and down in this box, I can say, I want it to start at this time that I just stopped it at. So now when I copy this, so before that was clicked, this is the link to the whole video. If I click this, watch what happens to the link. It added something that doesn't make sense to any of us. But luckily the hamsters that work at YouTube know that this means a time stamp. So now when I copy this link, and if I was to share it, right, so if I sent it to you or did anything like that, I'm just pasting it in here and I click enter, it's going to start at that moment, but the student would still have access to the whole video. That's exactly where I wanted it to be. So I have my video. That's what I'm asking you to do. Find at least one video. Now, what the assignment really was to take this video and add it to a playlist, because that's a great way to organize this content for yourself. We're not going to share the whole playlist on our websites because I don't think I haven't seen how you can do that. You could, if I make a playlist, and again, I do that by clicking on these three dots. If this window is bigger, I think it might even show it to me. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, save is those three lines, a little plus sign, click save. Gives me this option. I'm going to make my new pumpkin playlist. I don't even type the word, and I guess again, I just don't like M's today. I'm going to make that public just because there's no, for me, there's no reason not to. I'm going to create it. And then I could go back to my search results and maybe find another one that I want to put in there. Like awesome carving ideas. Okay. From here, again, we really do want to look at the video and make sure it's exactly the video you want to give. You are a curator. There's 50 million videos here. They could do what we just did. Our role now is to go in and actually watch the videos to find the one that really works for what we want to do. So I'm doing the worst piece here where I'm just pretending that I did that. But that's the part you're all really good at doing, I'm guessing. So the part that we're doing today is really the technical piece. So I'm going to say that this is a great video. Notice as I scrolled over it, I can actually save it from here. I can add it to my playlist from here. So I'm going to click on that. Oops, I lied. It sent it to my queue. That's not what I want. Oh, see, it was tricky. It used the nice little icon. I thought it was going to do something nice for us. I don't want it to play. Oh, there we go. All right. Under the three dots, I'm pretty sure I can do it. There we go. So three dots is better. Don't do it the way I just did it. Do it under three dots, save to playlist. Now I get the option of picking them, and the one I'm using the most is up here at the top, or the one I've just used is up here. Yay. Okay, now where are my playlists? Yes, Judy, I have a question.
That was my question. Where
Where
do you
are
find
they?
the playlist?
Yes. Who can tell us? Can anyone describe tell me how to get to my playlists?
Library.
Wait,
Library.
I just thought about, like, if you have your channel, what about your channel?
That it also can be there, but well, let's try it, right? So library definitely works. If I click on library, it gives me lots of stuff, right? So it's my history up here. There's a watch later. So these are the default buckets that it gives me, but here are my playlists. And what's nice is here I get to say how I want it to be organized. So I have the choice of either recently added or A to Z, and A to Z is ultimately more useful at this point because I can find pumpkin by going down to the alphabet, and I want to see all of them. Let's see, will it let me see all of them? Why is it making it hard? Show more. All right, so now we scroll down to, there we are. Here's our pumpkin. So I have a couple of things I can do here also, and this is really for the folks you share the link with. They can look at the full playlist, but not have anything start. And that can be helpful, right? So if I click on that, it's just going to show me the two videos that are in there. And from here, I could click play all, and it will play them in order. As a person creating this, I can put them in an order if I want them to be in a certain order, right? I can just drag them around. So they could be logical in whatever story you're trying to tell. So I can play all. Maybe I want to shuffle. If you're using this truly as a playlist for yourself, you could make your own music playlist, right? By putting a bunch of music videos here and then having them on shuffle. You could add a description. So wherever you see these little pencils, you can edit. If we go back, I could click on play all and it would just start playing them. And I would see the big video here, and I would see the side videos, the next video on the side over here. And this
So
is the
no,
shuffle.
you don't have to go to don't you have to go to your channel to get where you eventually navigated to?
So you don't.
This over here?
This was all under library. If you
Oh,
go,
under library.
yeah.
Okay.
The channel is actually more specific for the videos that you yourself make. It's still a useful place to go. I don't know why mine's not seeing my channel. Let's get rid of some of these long things here. I'm not even seeing my channel now. What's going on with that? But yeah, so you see, usually you see your channel, and your channel is where you will see playlists there, but you will also see all the all the videos that you put up there. So if I click on my videos, I wonder if they changed the name. And you used to only get one channel, which was to do with your account. I've seen other people have multiple channels. I don't know how they do that, so I can't tell you. So this is my channel content, which are all videos that I've made. And I can see how many times they were viewed and, you know, all that kind of information. I can see playlists from here as well. But this is more really from my control. And while it's interesting to see some of this information, this is not where I'd come to find the link and give it to my students. It's easier to do that, I think, under library. So that was showing me my channel, I guess. So if I click on my face, I guess that's how I get to my channel. So the channel is really associated primarily with what you've uploaded. But then you have these tabs along the top, right? So videos that I've made, playlists I've made. If I'm part of some communities, which I'm not. So technically you can subscribe to other people's channels. So as they add content, they'll just be here. And then there's something about when I started and whatever. All right, any questions? I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Any questions?
No, I've also seen the community tab used for people to do like a quick post, so that if anybody has subscribed, they can sort of like, it's sort of like a Facebooky kind of
Yes.
thing, you know, they can use it that way too.
Right. So, I mean, and that is, you know, these are those things with, I mean, YouTube is definitely a social media tool, and I've never used it that way, right? I use it as an instructional tool. So my videos are almost all instructional or funny things I've done with my nieces and nephews. Or my record-breaking one is the friend who was showing how to braid the Swedish bread, and it's had like thousands of views. But there's like a second one where they were frosting it and no one cares. That's had like 80 views. So who knows? And my niece, who's 9, has a video of literally just an image that she zooms in on a little bit, and it's a Toca Boca. So if you know Toca Boca, it's a whole world of video games and things like that. And she's figured out how to make vampires. I'm not going to say more because it's so confusing and weird. 5,000 views she's had. But that's the only video. Every other video is 9 views, but 5,000. So it's shocking and crazy. But so I don't use YouTube that way. You may find yourself wanting to do that. Students are probably fascinated and interested in this too. And certainly it can be a place to put out your amazing work. We do watch a lot of videos where people show you how they do things. There was a set of Yale lectures about the history of Ukraine that we just watched from Yale, which was amazing and free, and it's on YouTube. So there's amazing things out there, but I don't use it very much for interaction. So I think Judy's point, though, with the community concept or subscribing or following, a lot of that can lead to an actual direct, you know, people write comments at the end of videos and things like that. That's not how I don't write comments on other people's videos, and I don't really expect to have many comments on my videos. And so that's not how I've been using it, but it's certainly designed to have all of that. So you could use that for students to interact with your videos or whatever, but just know that it's very public. That's the other piece of that, right? So it's very hard to control who's seeing it once it gets to that level. And so I would tend to embed it somewhere else if I really wanted to have some interaction with my students without other strangers bumping into us. Which is
Nell, can you comment on a video? I don't think you can comment on a video until you create your own channel. Am I right?
I'm not sure.
That is true. That is
Okay.
true. Marika is right.
No.
You have to have because that's how if you try to comment, it won't let you. It will come up with a message saying you have to create your channel first.
That's my experience.
Right. So I'm guessing that kind of keeps us all honest. So you can't just come in here and blast a bunch of people without having your own tail on the game a little bit, but that's good to know, right? Especially if you're going to ask students to do something like that. Good to know. And it's worth having your own channel. Now, when you say that you have to have your own channel, does that mean that you have to have actually uploaded something, or you just have to have logged in and actually kind of?
Yes, you have to have uploaded something. Yep.
No, that's not
Interesting.
true. That's not true, Marika.
No?
No,
No?
because I just experimented with it this past month, and or you know, I have not uploaded a thing, but I have made comments on other interesting videos, you know, but I haven't uploaded a single thing.
So, oh, okay, so how did you create your channel then?
You know, I don't remember how I did that. Mel, can you help out? I can't remember how I did that. How did I do that?
I
Mel?
want to know that too.
I think you automatically get a channel once you log in. So Eldry, did you just try to log in at all? The hard part is you're going to need to remember your Google.
Yes, I'm having
Well,
trouble
I've
with the
uploaded a
signing.
couple of I've uploaded a couple of videos, but I definitely had to create, I think, the channel. I
channel.
don't think it was automatic.
And it
Yeah,
might be
if you're going to upload a video, you have to create a channel.
Right,
But I'm talking
right.
about making comments
Okay,
on
okay.
other videos. You still have
Uh-huh.
to, you have to create your channel without, and you don't have to have had uploaded any videos.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
And often with these things, pop-ups will occur, right? So if you try to do something and it's not working, I make the mistake all the time of not reading what's on the screen. Like little pop-ups will come up. I'm like, get out of the way. I want to get to my work. And it's like, oh, that pop-up actually said you have to create a channel before you can do it. So that's another good digital resiliency thing. Maybe we're not going to all read everything all the time, but if you hit a bump, try reading the pop-up message because it might actually tell you what's going on. All right, we're going to run out of time, so I'm going to take us back. So our last piece today, let me stop sharing. Oh, I did stop sharing. Let me start sharing let's see if I can get back to my slides. All right, our last piece for today is to make a website. So we're going to do this in 10 minutes. It's very exciting. All right, so we're going to skip down. So a lot of stuff here, taking you through all these steps. Once you've logged in, the big thing is you have to figure out how to log in. So that I'll leave you with. So we're scrolling down. You notice that you don't have to have a YouTube account to find a video. So for today's work, it's fine. It really is just for making that playlist, which we call our curation. So to curate or to create, you generally need accounts. To consume, you do not. Oh, Gmail is going to be your other one. Okay, so Gmail, my thoughts were that students can send writing in the body of the email or as an attachment, practicing adding attachments. Teachers can send emails to the full class or individually. And I have some, all right, I'm gonna have to go back. Let me stop sharing here and I'll go back to it on my other account. So have any of you used Gmail or email in general with your students as far as having them communicate with you or you communicate with them?
Yeah, I have.
And how has it worked, or what did you do?
It works well because, you know, they've gotten, I think with their own personal lives, they've gotten used to using email in general. Whether my students have an email, a Gmail account or not, is, you know, it doesn't matter. But as long as they have an email account, whether it, you know, it's Hotmail or whomever, you know, they're used to it in their personal lives. So I think for me, I've had a positive experience.
I send them a Gmail after each class, which is maybe too much, with a recap of what we've done. You know, sort of recap of what we've done and videos.
So, Marika, to do that, you at the beginning of class, at the beginning of the semester, whatever, you capture all their email addresses or they send them to you.
Absolutely.
Somehow.
I collect all their emails and I ask them really to get a Gmail account because I actually share every class. I share the Google Doc I write in.
Right. So one of the things, you know, if you could capture all your students' Gmail address or email addresses, you can then go into your contacts. You can upload it as a CVS file. They can all be in here. And if you label them, so both in in Contacts and in Gmail, they use the concept of label versus the idea of a folder or something like that. So in this case, I made one today that was Google Club, and it's all of you. So I took from the Zoom, I could capture all your email addresses, and then I could save that as a comma, whatever it is, CVS file, upload it in here, because when you go to create contact, you can create multiple contacts. And then you can say, actually, I'd like to do a CSV, not CVS, CSV. And then you can import contacts in here in one go. So say you did a Google form to get everyone's emails at the beginning of the semester, whatever you want to do. I mean, you might have other ways, and that's fine, but this is one way to get it all into your Gmail. And that way, when I want to send an email, I can just write that label. So if I type now Google Club, automatically your emails are going to go in there. So that could simplify things for you. One of the things to talk about students with is, when do you reply all? When do you reply just to one person? What do CC and BCC actually stand for?
Well, BCC is blind copy.
Yes,
And carbon copy.
carbon copy.
Yeah.
Right. So the CC
Carbon
is carbon
copy.
copy.
Actually, no,
Yes.
I have a question. So because I create group lists or contacts,
Yes.
but I don't know when I send a group email how to blind CC everyone.
So in this case, let's see what happens. If I go into my
So I just send them to all of them without the blind CC.
which is totally
Marika,
fine.
it's real easy. You just click on your group and just make sure you go to BCC instead of
So-
CC.
So here, I'm
Just
gonna
when you
click on BCC, and beside BCC, type in the name of your group.
that's it. That does
That
it.
should
Okay,
do it.
great.
Yep. So these people are now all BCC'd.
Oh,
when-
fantastic. Thank you,
Yeah.
Nell, and thank you,
Yeah.
Judy.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. So
I mean, they're usually very nice and want to share their emails, but you never know. Yeah.
exactly. So it's nice to have the option either way. But that's the difference, right? If you do a blind CC and someone hits reply all, they're only going to reply to you. If you do a CC or a regular they can reply all to everybody. And that's just something everyone should be aware of. And it's kind of a fun, you could do some fun, horrible game with that. We're not going to get to sites. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you sites.
Now, Joan has
yes.
the raised hand for a
Oh,
while.
sorry, Joan. I'm only seeing a very small picture of
It's
you all.
all right. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask.
Yes.
A lot of students are not regular email users.
Yes.
And these days, I'm noticing I use email less and less also, because people like to communicate through WhatsApp or some kind of social media. Are you guys finding that also?
Joan,
Well,
I
Joan,
actually use
what
both.
I'm sorry. We
I was going to
stepping on
say,
each other's words.
sorry, Judy, you want to go?
Yeah, thank you. What I do is, because I think in chat, if you saw it, I use Padlet for class wrap up and for homework. I find that to be so easy. So what I do is I send a email message to my students saying, because they've asked me, I've asked them, I said, would you just like to know when Padlet is updated? I don't say Padlet, I say digital board, because
Right.
they don't Padlet. What's that? So
Well,
I say
but work on
digital
the Padlet.
board.
You should, now we know we need to use the word Padlet, but that's great. Digital board works.
Yeah. So I say, would you like me to send you an email message when I've updated it? And they say, yes, teacher, please. So I send an email message, in the subject line, letting them know, or if it's homework or whatever. And I BCC them.
Excellent. And Marika, you said you also,
I use
Yeah.
both, email for homework and kind of a recap of what we've done. But in class, I a lot of times add a link that we're, an audio link or something that we're doing in class, because it's immediate and they're really into their WhatsApp. And what I love about it is they really communicate. So, I've always told them that I don't really look at our WhatsApp during class. If that a student can't get in because he or she's in the waiting room, tell your classmates in WhatsApp, and then you'll tell
They
me,
can let you
the
know.
teacher.
yes.
So it really works well, the WhatsApp. It's really great for kind of immediate stuff, immediate feedback or immediate links.
Okay. All right.
So
Thank
Marie,
you.
it looked like a few other people unmuted. Wait, did you want to say something? So Marie or Eldry, I see you're unmuted. Maybe nope. Okay, all good, all good. So I've heard both, right? I've been hearing that some classes love Gmail or email, and some classes are totally WhatsApp, and students are resentful and don't even want to learn email. And you get to decide a little bit with them what you want to really tackle with that. What I would say about email is that it's worth everyone having a Gmail account, partially because they get a Google account with that. It is worth talking a little bit about when would you use email in your regular lives, because some things are going to be email. And if you're not able to get into your email, you won't be able to find it. Or so, more formal things tend to have an email piece to them, like even sending a thank you note after an interview or whatever. And that could just be a fun activity, right? Like pretend you're writing a thank you letter after an interview or something like that. So it doesn't have to be that you use this as part of your homework all the time. This could really be some set assignments. What I will say on the other side is the texting, for a lot of students, that is the one time, especially for ESL students, it's the one time that they maybe really do write in English. Like most of the other time, even their emails might be in their native language. And what I've seen is that students struggle. That's a very text writing is a certain vernacular, right? So I had a person who worked for me, and she sent me a text once that said she was feeling very delicate, and it was like, hey lady, I'm feeling delicate, I won't be there today. And I'm like, I'm fine with that, I understand it, I hope you feel better. But if we had a more formal relationship and we're still texting, she would have come off a little better if she'd been able to be a little more fluent and say, not hey lady, right? Like, hi Nell, I'm under the weather, even would be better than delicate. Delicate's a really interesting word, right? Like it doesn't have, it's not quite how we say it. It's like, I don't know why, but I'm like, is she pregnant? Like, I don't know. The word delicate is such a funny word. Anyway, so all that to say that we're talking about email today because we're talking about Google, but certainly if you're working with students on any of these tools, it's such a rich space to work on language and the specifics of the language for those specific things. Just like writing a letter to your grandmother is different than writing a letter to your boss or whatever. So
I'm sorry to, because I know we're running over time, but another thought that just occurred to me is, do people, like in the business world, because I've been out of the business world now for a long time, do people still communicate by email in the business world, or do they communicate with like some kind of social media?
And I think there's a lot of folks who are working with Slack and WhatsApp or Teams, or there's a variety of these tools. And it would be great for students to feel some facility with those, because it's very nerve-wracking. Like I've been in several situations now where I've had to use Slack and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And it's very important, especially Slack and those kinds of tools are so immediate, right? Email has the slowness related to it. Like, I'm going to send you an email, I think you're going to get it, you're going to read it, you're going to have to do something, then you're going to get back to me. It's kind of okay if it, there's an expectation of a little bit of time there. With a text message or WhatsApp or Slack, there's this very immediate feeling, unless you create an expectation that I can't, right? Like, I'm not going to be available, so I can't look at my WhatsApp when I'm in class or whatever. So talking about all those things, anybody else any experiences that, because I think with email, it's really, like, I don't email with friends anymore, and I used to. I remember emailing with friends, and now I actually make a point of writing some letters, but otherwise it's text, and it's certainly social media.
Yeah.
So we are out of time. Oops, Judy, yes.
You said Slack. What is that? I don't even know what
Slack.
that is.
I think it's a Microsoft product, and it's used in a lot of more formal, like, companies is how I heard about it used. And what you do, it's SLACK, and you can have Slack channels. So, Nell should be on the Slack channel for the team that works on slides, and she should also be included in the one that talks about what we're having for lunch. But Joan,
or if you get volunteer to get the vote out. A
There
lot
you
of those,
go. Yes.
there you go, Slack channels. Yep.
Yes, and I think that's what's happened. So I actually got introduced to Slack when in my food co-op, they started using a Slack channel to notify us if they needed someone to fill in, which is much more immediate than their process, which was an email process. And then I belonged to a sailing group, and they also use Slack as their communication thing. So it's certainly filtering out from the business area, but it started as a very businessy thing. Like when I first heard of Slack, it was always people who were kind of slightly techie, and it was this idea that you could have, it was a way of dividing up groups. So some people should be in everyone should be included in this Slack channel, and then some other channels are very specific down to 2 or 3 people. And that way you can kind of track all that information. And it's an app on your phone, and it's something you can look at on your computer screen. I think Teams, people use Teams very similarly, and
Volunteer to get out the vote, all these Slack channels.
Yeah, that's where I first learned about it,
Yeah.
volunteering with
Yeah.
a political campaign.
Yep.
Mhm.
yeah. So
And it's
another-
it's very different culturally too. It's not like, it's a lot of younger people I was working with, so the language they chose to use was very different than like
Yeah.
an email.
yeah. Right. And I mean,
Different.
like, yeah, I'm someone who
Hey,
still punctuates.
Joan,
Yeah, yeah. I punctuate my texts, which is we were having a lot of jokes this summer with my sister-in-law about all the different rolling on the floor laughing kind of. I say raffle because she's like, you say raffle? That's crazy. I'm like, well, it's a word. It looks like a word. Anyway, we are going to stop there, but you have the slides. For those of you who are intrepid and brave, you can now follow along and get down to the Google Slides assignment, which I have some step-by-step stuff in there. The idea was to make your own Google website where you would then insert and I use the word insert because there's a nice little bucket of insert your slides, insert your videos, add a little button that has your email address so people could email you directly from the website and have the assignment that you had sent out as an email. That's all here, written in our, where is it? Did I not finish typing it up? I don't think I typed it up. All right, I will add that slide to our slides. I didn't get there, I guess. Oh, there it is. I lied. It's on it's slide 60. So you're going to go to a website, create one. You're going to have to name it. You're going to insert your slides. We will take a little time next time to work on this. So if you don't get to it, we will come back. But you'll need to remember where all of your stuff is from today. So maybe do make a document or a folder with the links to your video, know where your slides are, and we'll work on inserting them in there because I do think websites are really good. Yes, I like that it's Judy's goal. As a reminder, in the slides, there is the link for the survey to tell us the kinds of things you'd be interested in having us do more on. I think Sheets came up and still Google Classroom for homework and things like that. Our next session is November 23rd, and it's going to be the synchronous instructions. So we would look at slides, Jamboard, photo, and search, but we'll take some time to do Google sites. So we'll add that in there. And always remember that Applied Digital Skills has a lot of this stuff broken out as a lesson to do something else. So you could definitely look at how to make websites there. If you had questions left over from today, they might respond. They might have some answers for you. All right, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and say, have a really lovely rest of the evening. Thank you for spending some extra time, and look forward. And as usual, feel free to email with any questions or things that you want to maybe ask us to cover, because we really are always happy to respond to that. So again, have a great evening.
Thank you so much, Nell.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, ladies.